Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Government Operations and Health Facilities Subcommittee of Health and Government Operations. We have a work session today where we are going to consider 9 bills. We have a hard stop at 2:20 because the Government Operations Full Committee has bill hearings. So we will try and be as expeditious as we can. We will start with Bill 778, then 783, then 543, 261, 472, 676, 1176, 1141, and 646. And I will put those in the chat. Let's begin with House Bill 778, Montgomery County Delegation and Prince George's County Delegation. Lindsay, can you explain the bill to us?
This bill alters provisions of law relating to commissioners appointed from Montgomery County to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. The bill also requires the Montgomery County Planning Board to generally publish and maintain on its website the agenda of open meetings and other required information within 72 hours before each meeting and approve meeting minutes in a timely manner. We received amendments that were approved unanimously in both Montgomery County and Prince George's County delegations that add provisions authorizing a commissioner of a bi-county agency from Montgomery County or an applicant to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to submit financial statements to the county council electronically, strikes provisions altering the selection process for appointments to the commission from Montgomery County, strikes provisions authorizing the removal of a commissioner by the county executive with the approval of the county council and a requirement of a public hearing for a disciplinary action against a commissioner, strikes provisions from the bill establishing a new process for selecting a chair and vice chair of the commission, strikes from the bill provisions authorizing the county executive of Montgomery County to set the salary of the chair of the commission from Montgomery County with the approval of the county council, alters language limiting the outside employment of any commissioner to instead prohibit the employment of the chair in any other full-time employment while serving as chair, alters language relating to prohibitions against political activity by a commissioner, alters criteria for training requirement for commissioners, strikes provisions in the bill relating to agendas and minutes of meetings of the planning board, requires the planning board to report to the Montgomery County delegation on the board's ability to provide certain timely information on its website, and then strikes the designation as an emergency bill and establishes the standard October 1st, 2023 effective date.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from Montgomery or Prince George's County here to discuss this bill? Do I hear a motion on the bill?
Move the amendment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the amendments and second. All in favor of adopting the amendments, say aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments?
Move the bill as amended.
Thank you, Delegate Hill.
Second.
Thank you, Hipke. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? No one's opposed. Members present vote unanimously on the bill. The next bill is House 783. Please explain this one to us, Lindsay.
This is another bi-county bill, and we have letters of unanimous support with amendments from both delegations. The bill renews the authorization for the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission to establish a minority business enterprise procurement preference program until July 1st, 2028, eliminates the distinction between the MBE programs established by WSSC for construction and goods and services, establishes the legal justification for WSSC to operate an MBE program based on specified findings by the General Assembly, streamlines and clarifies certification requirements for MBEs participating in the WSSC program, repeals authorization for the geographic location of businesses to be considered for participation in the program, including a target of 40% for businesses in Montgomery County and 40% for businesses in Prince George's County, and includes additional clarifying and technical changes. The amendments from the delegations strike new language that requires the commission's regulations to establish certain race-neutral programs and policies and require a bid or proposal based on a solicitation that includes an MBE participation goal to include certain documentation about an MBE's participation. Instead, the language in the existing law is restored, which provides for the graduation of an MBE from the program if the commission determines the MBE no longer requires assistance or benefits offered by the program and requires a bid or proposal based on a solicitation with an expected degree of MBE participation to include proof of a certified MBE commitment by stating certain information. It makes technical corrections to refer to prime contractors rather than general contractors, removes language that would have required each prime contractor to provide prompt notification to the commission before the termination of a contract with an MBE only when feasible, restores to the bill an existing requirement that the commission report annually to the Montgomery County and Prince George's County Senate and House delegations on any waivers of all or part of the MBE program for a specific contract, restores existing language regarding the price preferences to MBEs, restores existing language regarding establishing a sheltered market program, and strikes new language authorizing the establishment of a race-neutral program, restores existing language that requires the geographic location and principal place of business of the MBE to be a consideration for participation in the program, including a targeted percentage of at least 40% each for Montgomery and Prince George's counties, and restores existing language that requires the commission to examine an alternative certification program to ensure that the alternative program complies with certain guidelines and that the principal owner of an MBE is not more than one certified business participating in the program.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to comment on the amendments? Do I hear a motion on the amendments?
Move the amendment.
Okay,
Second.
we have Delegate Johnson motion on the amendments, Delegate Hill second. All in favor of the amendments, say aye. Is anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, on the bill as amended,
Move the bill as amended.
Delegate
Second.
Johnson, Delegate Hill. Thank you. On the bill as amended, all in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Members present vote unanimously. The next bill is, I believe, Delegate Tomlinson's procurement bill, 543. Let's hear about that one, Lindsay.
This bill raises the maximum value threshold for most small procurements from $50,000 to $100,000 and makes conforming changes to other specialized small procurement thresholds. The committee had previously received a suggested amendment from DNR, and they have withdrawn that suggested amendment, so there are no amendments on this bill.
Thank you. Delegate Tomlinson, anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I sent over a little bit more information and answered the questions that were brought up during the committee. So yeah, if there's unless there was any questions about what I responded with.
Thank you, Delegate Tomlinson. Is anyone else here to speak on House Bill 543?
Move the bill.
Second.
Delegate Kipke with a motion on the bill, Delegate Hill second. Any further discussion on House Bill 543? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we have a few more members present. Lindsay, if you want to make sure we got their votes, Delegate Tavares, Delegate Alston, Delegate Chisholm have joined.
We don't actually really take like an official vote. I'll note if someone's opposed, but honestly, if everyone's just in favor, then that's fine.
Okay, even better.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. The next bill is 261. I think that's my bill.
It is indeed.
Okay, let's hear about it.
As introduced, the bill requires the Department of General Services by January 1st, 2025 to establish a maximum acceptable global warming potential for each category of cement or concrete mixture used in the construction of a public project. Beginning July 1st, 2025, state agencies must specify in each solicitation for a construction project the cement or concrete mixture that will be used in the project and the reasonable minimum usage thresholds below which the bill's requirements do not apply. Contractors may not install any cement or concrete mixture before they submit specified environmental product declarations. The bill's provisions related to state construction projects may be waived under specified circumstances, and the bill generally takes effect July 1st, 2023, but the provisions regarding requirement for state solicitations and construction projects take effect July 1st, 2025. I circulated amendments on this from the sponsor that establish that an eligible project under the bill includes a capital project, requires producers of eligible materials to submit environmental product declarations to DGS on or before December 31st, 2024, requires DGS to analyze those declarations and assess global warming potential for eligible materials used in an eligible project, alters from January 1st, 2025 to January 1st, 2026, the date by which DGS shall establish a maximum acceptable global warming potential for each category of eligible materials used in an eligible project, and also pushes the review date back by 1 year, establishes an environmental product declaration assistance fund for 1 year and 6 months. The fund consists of money appropriated in the state budget, and the purpose of the fund is to award grants to producers of eligible materials to support the development, standardization, and transparency of environmental product declarations for construction materials and products, requires the Maryland Green Building Council to conduct a study relating to the climate impact of construction materials and report by September 1st, 2024, and moves the effective date for the portion of the bill requiring units to specify the eligible materials in a project and requiring current environmental product declarations or similar assessments for each eligible material back by 1 year to July 1st, 2026.
Thank you, Lindsay. I know we have some advocates and perhaps some opposition here to speak on the bill today. In order to make this go smoothly, if you could locate the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and if you wish to be recognized to speak, please raise your virtual hand.
Mr. Chairman, do you want us to move the amendments or you just want to have a discussion first?
Yeah, good idea, Delegate Hill. Let's go ahead and move the amendments.
Move the amendments, please.
Second.
Okay, on the amendments, all in favor say aye. Is there anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass unanimously. I'm going to recognize John Favazza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Favazza today on behalf of Wholesome. We are grateful for these amendments. This bill is modeled after programs that are up and running in other states and is ongoing in the federal government right now. This bill is just limited to concrete at this point due to its widespread use and its large carbon footprint. The amendments, I think, are very helpful and help address some of the concerns that industry had and some of the concerns from the Department of General Services. So, the sort of effective dates have been pushed back a little bit, I think, to give DGS as well as industry time to adjust to the requirements under the bill. A grant fund established contingent on budget funding to help industry develop these environmental product declarations, and a study of other materials as well, just to make sure that the bigger picture of sustainability and lowering carbon construction materials is sort of on the table down the road. So we're supportive of the bill and supportive of the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Call next on Devin Neal.
Thank you. So, yes, Devin Neal from the Department of General Services. We appreciate you working with us on this to make it a little more palatable. I believe Steve Laria from the Green Building Council is here, and he may have something to say on the amendments. I think we are a little concerned with the amendment in section 4 with the Green Building Council. So I don't know if Steve's on the call.
I am on the call, Devin. I don't know that I have any specific reaction. Other than to say,
Steve, if something comes up and you'd like to chime in, just go ahead and raise that virtual hand and we'll be sure and recognize you. Devin, anything else at this point?
As I said, I believe our only concern is possibly that section 4 with the study, since it is all the materials included in state construction, that is a very broad range of things, and that is a very heavy lift for the Green Building Council to do that report. Just based on the report that they produced on concrete alone this past year, doing it for all those categories would be a very heavy lift.
Devin, is there something that could be adjusted to that item 4 that would relieve some of your concerns?
I don't believe there is anything really that could be alleviated that would get rid of those concerns, and Steve may have something to say on that too, as he is the designee for the Green Building Council himself.
And is it the expansion to other materials? Is that what your concern is?
Yes, because they would have to go in and study that for all materials, which is a very broad and heavy lift.
So you're saying that the time and expense of doing this comprehensive review is what has you in opposition to this piece of the bill?
Yes, just the time it would take and the work that goes into generating that, examining those materials for section 4 would be
Individuals
an issue, yes.
Let me go back to John Favazza.
Leslie, you're not muted, Leslie.
Sorry.
Thank you. Let me go back to John Favazza. John, do you have any response to this discussion on item 4?
Sure, and Tom Evans from the Maryland Ready Mix Concrete Association. I believe this I think came from some of their written testimony that they were concerned about concrete being singled out in the legislation. So my only comment is that most of the other states and as the federal government is doing a very similar program, they are broader than just concrete. I think there's reasons why we are starting with just concrete. So the most common materials that are included in a lot of these other bills are wood, steel, and glass. So I don't know if a limitation to those specific materials helps. And again, I'll defer to Mr. Evans if he had some additional comments.
Yes, Mr. Evans.
Certainly. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, delegates and others on the call. The Maryland Ready Mix Concrete Association really appreciates the effort for all the legislative efforts when it comes to, lowering or curbing greenhouse gas emissions for our buildings in the state. That makes sense to all of us. The issues I think we have with focusing on just concrete is that concrete, most of us would agree, in the cradle as it's produced, does have higher emissions than some other materials. However, looking at a building that's constructed with concrete over its life cycle far outweighs that emissions. It saves in energy. It saves so many other ways. So by just sort of tying the concrete industry's hands up front just on material embodied carbon limits the scope of designers and their use of innovation to create buildings that actually do conserve and have lower emissions over time. So the concern is the upfront sort of limitations that you might put. It sort of stifles innovation with concrete. About the other materials, certainly, we just don't see any reason why you would just single out concrete. We understand you have to start somewhere, but however, how can we say as a state to buy clean concrete, but we can buy other materials that aren't so clean? Doesn't sound right to us.
Yeah, I think, well, you're right, Mr. Evans. We do have to start somewhere. Let me go back to Devin Neal. Would limiting the study to wood, steel, and glass make this a bit more palatable?
So I'm going to defer to Mr. Lario on this, as this is his subject matter expertise. And I think he might be able to expand a little bit on why that may be an issue for us.
Thank you. Mr. Lario.
You're muted, Steve.
Still muted. There you go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you very much for requesting our input on this. So there were a couple of questions. One, I think, is why concrete? And, we weren't really privy to the origin of this bill, but it's concrete is often cited because of its energy intensity in its production, particularly in the cement production. It's cited as accounting for a very large portion of total global energy consumption, something like 7% of all global energy production. There are several states that have established EPD thresholds for various products. I'd say one of the better organized and most advanced is California. And they have energy production thresholds for several products, including glass, steel. I'm not sure about wood, but they don't necessarily have concrete. That was number one. Number two, I think if the Green Building Council is tasked with evaluating the thresholds for environmental product declarations, particularly with concrete, I would say we currently lack the technical resources necessary to evaluate and establish standards. But that is something which could be remedied with additional staff. So that's number one. And I think on the other products, if there's a desire to address that, we would look at benchmarks and thresholds that other states have adopted for their products.
Thank you. Let me go to the subcommittee now. Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And look, I appreciate the intent of this bill, but one, I don't think it's ready for prime time. Number two, essentially what we have is we have a company, a very big company, Wholesome, essentially drafting a bill like this. And I appreciate what they do, but this bill is going to be used to force certain companies to use their type of products or use their products. It's a way of leveling out smaller businesses that aren't going to be able to handle this type of regulation being put on them. You have DGS telling you they really don't have the ability to put it into effect. We have a huge company like Ready Mix saying it's tough to do. But I do recall from the committee testimony, most companies are already trying to make changes. And by us putting our boot on their back will possibly result in running some of these businesses out of business for a bigger business. And I'm sorry for being emotional. I get mad about the crony capitalism stuff and using big companies to knock out smaller companies. And that's exactly what this bill is. And it's not going to result in any lower global warming. So it wasn't a question, just a statement, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Tavares.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question that I have is, I understand that there's an original, there's an initial consumption peak in the production of cement. But why are we not looking at the entire life cycle of cement and the additional products? Because the thing is that cement, as Mr. Evans says, has a longer life cycle and is a lot longer lasting, which will result in longer and greater opportunities for energy savings and energy savings and mitigation as compared to, let's say, wood or something that may over time need to be reconstructed and has a shorter life cycle. So when we're doing that kind of analysis, I think that that's something that might address some of the concerns that are being highlighted.
Thank you, Delegate Tavares. This is not a new bill. We've been working on this for a bit now. And the desire is to start moving in this direction. There is, to address Delegate Chisholm's concern, there is money in the bill to provide equipment and training for other companies to be able to compete in this market. So it's not a big guy putting the little guy out of business here. I'd like to go to Delegate Kipke next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You just referenced, so, I had the same concerns initially as Delegate Chisholm about, smaller companies not being able to compete because of this new addition to the review for contracts. So I saw that in the amendment that there is the creation of a fund. Do you happen to know if the dollars that go along with that are in the proposed budget or in any supplementals? Or I just want to make sure there's real money that would help those smaller companies So that's my initial question. I have a couple of others, but
Yeah, I've spoken to leadership and that money is in the budget. It's funded.
okay. And that will fund the, this is for funding whatever is necessary to get those small businesses up and running, whether it's equipment or the paying for the certification, or, you know, can you just, I don't know who's the best person to answer it. Can you help me understand, first of all, how much money is there, and how this money will be used? I'll just leave it broad, how the money will be used.
John Favazza, do you have that information quickly?
Yes, I do. So it's been Delegate Kipke, thanks for the question. It's been funded in the budget on the House side in the amount of $200,000 for the subcommittee year. So it's a temporary fund. It would take effect when the bill takes effect in July. It would sunset at the end of December 2024, which is the deadline for companies to submit their environmental product declarations to the Department of DGS. So it's specifically intended to cover, you know, everything you just talked about. You know, all of those startup costs that eligible producers or the concrete producers are going to have to support their development, their standardization, you know, basically to help them get their EPD generator, which has an upfront cost to it. So that's where.
Do you happen to know what it costs to get up and running?
The number that we've been, and Zach Lovett is here from Wholesome, who's probably better at this than I am, but we've been told it's like $10,000 to $15,000 startup cost.
Okay. And do we know how many people? I don't know if the associate, maybe the association. I know
Tom can definitely answer how many members he has in his association and what portion of the industry they cover.
I'm just curious, Tom, is that enough money to get the little guys covered?
Thanks, Delegate. I think so. And I think the reality at this point, about 25% of the producers in Maryland, ready mix producers in Maryland are geared up. And likely by the end of the year, about half of them will have or targeted to have this.
Tom, respectfully, we're under a time crunch, so I just want to get a couple quick things answered. I have a feeling, since we live in the California of the East, this is a mandate is likely to come at some point around this subject, whether it's concrete or everything. Doesn't this put your members in a better position because it's associated with the dollars to get them up and running?
That certainly is a plus. I wouldn't argue with that.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. There seems to be some consternation around some aspects of the amendment, which I think are primarily related to the work for DGS. I don't know who asked for it or if it's necessary, but perhaps maybe we delay or not do that part of it. I mean, the part of this that I like is that we're helping the small producers with getting up and running, which may not have necessarily happened without this bill. So that's my focus. You know, that's the piece I'm trying to focus in on.
Before I'll come back to you, Delegate Kipke. Let me hear from Zach Levitt first.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak as a representative of Wholesome and an employee here in the state of Maryland of Wholesome. You know, I think what this, especially the money that's set aside for the EPD generators, what that really does is allows the smaller businesses that we're concerned about to compete on a more level playing field, because ultimately companies like mine can already afford and have afforded to build our own. You know, we have an EPD generator at all of our plants in the state of Maryland, DC and Virginia. So what that money and what those EPD generators really do is allow any concrete producer, you know, the cement companies are certainly large enough, they have the financial wherewithal, but any small concrete producer to understand the impact of their products and to build better products to have a lower impact from an environmental perspective. So, you know, it really does a lot for the industry to have money available for those companies to build this and then really know what those impacts are on the products.
Delegate Kipke, did you want to suggest something here?
I don't know if Lindsay could help, but some aspects of the amendment seem to cause trouble. I don't know if they're worthy amendments or not. I don't know who offered, where they came from, but perhaps the aspect that DGS is concerned about, we can just not do for now.
Lindsay, do you have those identified?
I mean, I can certainly either just cut out the entire study from the Green Building Council. We can limit the study. We could extend it. I mean, I can draft whatever the will of the subcommittee is.
What is your suggestion, Delegate Kipke?
I'm suggesting we just scrap it. I mean, for now, and we can look at it fresh in the future, because it does step up some important things, I believe. But I think that's probably our easiest path forward. I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that, but.
Devin, did you want to speak to that, to Delegate Kipke's point?
Yes, removing section 4 would be, I think, the best option for DGS.
Delegate Kipke, is that a motion to remove section 4 from the amendments?
Before
I
we
move to remove
that,
section 4. What? Oh, Delegate Johnson.
Delegate Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is along the same lines, but like you said, we have to start somewhere. So does the Green Building Council, do they have any studies on glass, steel, or wood currently that you know of?
Steve Loria?
We do not have any studies on those specific materials. We have looked at what other states have approved and endorsed, but that's the extent of our analysis.
Okay, so would it make sense to do away with the study altogether, or pick possibly the next largest greenhouse gas producing item and just do it on one, the next in line?
Are you, I'm
Just
sorry.
in the interest of time, Delegate Kerr, if I could just suggest something, why don't we post, send a letter to them that's a thoughtful letter requesting that something be done that we can really think out. And there's so much work today, and I just don't want to, we got to get it done.
Yeah, we do. Let's deal with Delegate Kipke's motion on the amendments to strike item 4. Does anyone second that effort?
Are you good with that, Mr. Chairman?
Second. I am.
Second.
Okay, on Delegate Kipke's motion to strike item 4 from the amendments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so do I have, it's Mr. Loria?
Yes.
I see your hand still up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the bill as currently amended?
Move the bills amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the bill as amended. All in favor, say aye. Is anyone opposed to this bill? Delegate Chisholm. Any other hands in opposition? Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Let's move on to Bill 472.
This bill requires the Maryland Transit Administration to use the competitive sealed proposal method of procurement when selecting a commuter bus service provider. MTA must also conduct a procurement for a commuter bus service provider in accordance with the provisions and regulations adopted under state procurement law, and the bill applies only prospectively. There are no amendments on this bill, and the Senate cross file has passed the Senate 47-0.
This is Delegate Kaiser's bill.
Move the bill.
I'll say second, and I was just going to add not just unanimous in the Senate, but unamended outside of bipartisan co-sponsors.
Thank you. Delegate Alston moved the bill. Do we have a second? Oh,
Second.
Pam. Maryland Department of Transportation. I see Pilar has her hand up. We have a motion and a second, so let's go with discussion. Go ahead, Ms. Helm.
Hi, Chair Kerr. How are you? Thanks for having me. Pilar Helm from MDOT Government Affairs. I've got some folks from MTA here, Andrea Farmer, who has raised her hand. And, you know, our written testimony, we sent in a letter of opposition. Our written testimony, you know, is what it is. I'm sure the subcommittee has reviewed it. But I think, you know, Andrea will be able to speak to some of MTA's concerns and kind of what we're doing to improve the procurement process moving forward for the commuter bus service. So Andrea, I'll kick it over to you.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I apologize I can't get my video on. You know, I do want to bring up a point that RFPs that are listed in this bill can be a rigorous process, which may be very difficult to produce for small companies. So, you know, we are always trying to promote competition and not hinder it. So, you know, I ask that be a consideration. We do have a procurement method that may be amenable. You know, it is a multi-step IFB versus a full RFP, you know, in which the technical offers are accepted, and if deemed acceptable, then the pricing is opened and the award is based on price. So, you know, I ask that may be a consideration, you know, given, you know, we do want small companies to participate in our procurements. If you're not aware, but commuter bus is a fully contracted service. And right now we have 31 contracts that run the service for 36 routes within the state.
I'm going to go to Delegate Kaiser to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for giving me that opportunity. I wanted to make two key points in the description of the RFP process being too difficult for the companies. A, the companies are asking for it, and B, the RFP process doesn't have to be difficult if the requirements set out in the RFP aren't that difficult. So the only ones who would make it difficult would be MTA through what they would put out. But I think the companies are willing to do it, and I think have demonstrated that more than cost is important. And I'm completely forgetting my other point, so I reserve the right to come back to it, but I did just want to address that part about the RFPs not being a problem for the companies.
Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. Going on to other members of the committee, Delegate Chisholm.
Once again, and Delegate Kaiser is probably best to answer this. So we're changing the bidding process, correct? Can you just give me a quick summary of what we're going to and what we're coming from and what we're going to? Am I correct on this? It's mostly due to the bidding process. Am I correct?
Yes, thank you, Delegate Chisholm. So instead of just looking for, can you do the route and do you have the cheapest price, but to be able to, there's a thought that we should be looking at things like safety record and security and maintenance records and so forth, and possibly even, as was discussed during the hearing, connection to MBE goals. And I believe Mr. Henry, who's here, discussed that that they do have like MBE fuel providers. And so I think that's something that's also left out of the RFP. So companies are not really getting a chance to fully demonstrate how well they can deliver a high quality product service to our residents.
And I appreciate all that, but are you concerned with the same concern I had with the last bill? Is it creating an uneven playing field for maybe some of the bigger players?
My understanding is there's 6 or 7 main players, and that who we're hearing from aren't necessarily what you might call the big guys, but family-owned companies that are Maryland-based, and they're willing to do this. So I think we're not putting anyone at a disadvantage, but they might be better at answering that themselves.
Okay, thank you. I'll let some other people ask questions.
Thanks. Let me go to a constituent again. I just see the screen name MEM. I don't know who you are. You want to unmute yourself and comment?
Chairman Kerr, I think that is, her name is Memory Hewlett from MTA. So I don't know if you wanted to move on to someone else before turning to her.
Okay, let's go to Brent Lundinger.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To the point to Delegate Chisholm's question about competition, we have 4 family-owned businesses that are in support of the bill, saying that this would be the best way that they can demonstrate innovation, creative ways to approach, as opposed to being dictated as to what is needs to be provided, as far as the age of the bus and a number of different factors. So these are the family-owned businesses who are saying this is going to be the best way. I do have Scott Henry, who is with the Martz Bus Company, and his brother John, who run the company. Anything that you might want to add, Scott?
Yeah, let me go to Scott Henry.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Chairman Kerr. I would just like to add that our view of this bill is that it very simply allows the smaller family businesses like ours to present qualitative factors related to our business, such as how we handle our safety program, how we handle our driver training, what our driver wages are, our labor relations, our preventative maintenance programs, and other qualitative factors as that, in addition to pricing and being able to suggest equipment purchasing plans, which right now we don't have the opportunities to suggest a plan that may be better than what is dictated in the current IFBs. So the ultimate goal of this is to allow the smaller family businesses to offer up a full picture of how we might provide the service that could maybe set the smaller companies or even the bigger companies apart rather than strictly on a big company's ability to come in and, because of the volume that they run across the country, offer the service at a much lower price. This allows a more even playing field of competition and allows us to suggest proposals rather than have the terms dictated to us and then meet those requirements, arbitrarily. Thank you.
Delegate Alston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, I think that by changing the standard, we're actually opening up more competition, which is better for the market than what we've been doing. And I think we can get more minorities, more small business, maybe more women-owned businesses to actually be able to participate in the process. So that's it.
Okay, last word. Can you tell us your name? I didn't get it from your.
Memory Hewlett from MTA.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm the director of the Office of Procurement. I'm just here to speak into some of the comments that were recently made. For one, there was made in regards to MBEs, and currently our contracts have a 6% MBE goal. This will not take any jobs away from minority businesses. Also, our current contracts have made significant changes as it relates to offering performance incentives. We now allow older buses. We also have revised the seating capacity, and we also added in fuel reimbursement. And that reimbursement is based on AAA rates. And so there are a lot of comments that have been made in terms of whether or not the vendor community have the ability to have more flexibility in how they provide their services. But MTA has made significant changes to our current contracts to allow for those considerations. And we just don't understand how we would evaluate these type of services, considering the fact that our routes and our schedules are fixed. We can't negotiate the routes of the coach buses. We already have schedules in place in terms of the wages. We do not dictate wages. That is based on living wage and whatever other factors that are required for this type of contract. So when they say that they want to have more flexibility to provide the services they deem most appropriate, it's unclear to us how they intend to do that when a lot of the requirements in the contract are fixed to the benefit of the state and how we provide these services. So it's still unclear to us what the objective is, considering that we have fixed schedules and all that other stuff that I previously listed.
Thanks very much. Look, I'm going to allow one more rebuttal. Is it best to hear from Mr. Henry or Mr. Leininger?
I think that we agree it creates more competition. It's a great bill, and let's just move the bill in the interest of.
Let me make sure that Mr. Henry gets a chance to address those things really quickly, because we only have about 12 minutes left.
Okay, I'll be quick. Thank you. I would just say that even though the routes are fixed, there are still qualitatively different ways in which operators can operate a fixed route, and the quality of the operator matters. And also, you know, just as the IFB process has been changed a number of times in the last few years to improve it, in the decade before that, it had been changed a number of other ways to make it less competitive and less based on partnerships. And by implementing this bill, it will require the MTA on an ongoing basis to take qualitative factors into account.
Ms. Hewlett, 15 seconds.
Yes, in terms of quality of drivers, the drivers are required to have a valid commercial driver's license. And so operators are not supposed to be operating buses without that license from the state. And so in terms of the quality and the standard of the drivers, there are standards that they're supposed to follow in regards to the quality of their service. So again, what else is there that would cause for an RFP process?
Very quickly, Mr. Henry.
I would just say that this would give operators an opportunity to explain to the MTA what are the other things that we do beyond just licensing our drivers, which there are many things we do beyond that. This is a complicated business. This would at the very least give us an opportunity to explain what those things are and show why they are of value.
But we already know what we want.
Okay, we have 4 more bills and 8 more minutes.
Bill?
So, Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I'm totally confused. I mean, generally, you know, closed envelope bids seem like they increase competition, but I actually read the MTA letter. And I'm understanding what they're saying about they have nothing to put out except the delays thing. So I would love it if Delegate Kaiser could answer those points that they make about what they're saying. And even to Mr. Henry saying, this gives the competitors an opportunity to present. Actually, a closed bid doesn't give you an opportunity to present anything. It's lowest bidder. And there is no opportunity to talk about why your low bid may not be too low or your high bid may be appropriate or whatever.
Let's hear from the bill sponsor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say that right now, if they're only looking at price, we would like to think that an RFP would include things about driver pay, driver safety, the training program, preventative accidents, whether they're hiring Maryland drivers, MB participation, their preventative maintenance, their miles between breakdowns. I mean, I could go on. So in my mind, there are a lot of things, and I think they were shared with the subcommittee members of the other factors that could be included. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Seeing the time, I don't think that anything else is going to get resolved. This did pass the Senate 45-0, with the only amendment being co-sponsors. So I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Any opposed to this bill? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The bill passes unanimously out of subcommittee. Moving on, the next would be 676.
Can I move favorable on that bill?
On 676?
Second.
We have an amendment from the sponsor. And sorry, can I just real quick? So the bill establishes that a registered cemetery and registered crematory operator or a permit holder who sells or offers to sell to the public certain services for pet remains owes a duty of perpetual care for the cemetery in which the pet remains are interred. The sponsor offered an amendment on the bill requiring the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight to adopt regulations to enforce the requirements of the bill. I sent that amendment to the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight and received a response this morning, which I circulated as post amendment from the Director to everyone. There wasn't any real context on that amendment, but the amendment would have defined interment to include disposition of pet remains. I sent back a question to the Director noting that defining interment to include pet remains would then extend all of the provisions regarding the regulation of cemeteries to pet cemeteries, including the requirement to register as a cemetery and have inspections from the Office of Cemetery Oversight and those associated issues, and haven't received any response. I don't believe that she's on this call now, but I did want to just raise that for everyone. The amendment that she sent didn't indicate any desire to strike anything from the bill or strike the delegate Wyvil's amendment.
I'm
that's where
sorry.
it is.
Delegate Tavares?
I'm sorry. Did we already do 646? Because that's the bill I was moving on.
We were not going in numerical order.
We're not going in numerical order.
My apologies. So I saw the amendment on the
Okay.
676. So I would move favorable on that bill, on the amendment.
Second.
Okay, motion on the amendment in the second. All
So
in
just to
favor?
clarify, this is Delegate Wyvil's sponsor amendment.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I thought we were going in order, and if not, then I did see the amendment to the pet bill. So yes.
On Delegate Wyvil's amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendment? On the bill as amended?
Move
the bill
as amended.
We
Second.
have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Everyone in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Bill passes. Anyone in opposition? Okay, the bill passes favorably out of subcommittee unanimously. The next bill, we've got like maybe 4 minutes if we could take a look at Bill 1176. We probably are not going to get this done. This is Delegate Atterbury's bill.
Yep,
As you
so
would-
this bill establishes the 911 registry program. The sponsor offered amendments on the bill to alter the terminology used in the bill, specify that a public guardian appointed by the court may not register an individual in the 911 registry program, requires each registrant to annually confirm whether they shall remain on the registry and that their information is correct, rather than requiring the local jurisdiction or 911 call center to contact registrants, requires a registrant who does not update or validate information after 1 year to be removed from the registry, specifies that nothing in the bill may be construed to create a private cause of action, and specifies that non-compliance with information in the registry is not admissible in a suit seeking to impose civil liability arising out of a 911 call. So just to clarify, the sponsor has 2 amendments. These are read together to create those requirements that I just described. And those latter ones in the second amendment are from work that the sponsor did with Mako.
Andy Cope, are you here to speak to this bill? Oh, we can't hear you. I'm not sure why. You're not muted. You're good with the
He's
bill?
thumbsing up.
Okay. Anyone want to move the amendment?
Move the amendment.
Second.
Okay, on the amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendment? On the bill as amended?
Move the bill as amended. Second.
All in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, favorable on the bill as amended out of subcommittee. Gee, this next one, we can start, but we're only gonna have a couple of minutes till we have to be in committee. This is 1141, the TikTok bill.
Yep, this is the TikTok prohibition. The sponsor submitted amendments that prohibit an employee.
Oh, you muted yourself there, Lindsay.
I didn't, the host muted me, it says.
Oh.
But I apologize. It's not the sponsor who offered these amendments. These amendments are suggested by the chair of HGO. The amendments prohibit an employee or agent of a unit or an entity contracting with a unit from downloading or using any application, including TikTok or WeChat, or accessing any website that is developed by ByteDance Limited or Tencent Holdings Limited on any information technology owned or leased by the unit, or while connected to any wired or wireless internet network owned, operated, or maintained by the state, and defines ByteDance and Tencent Holdings to include successor companies and entities. If you all recall, during the bill hearing, the chair asked the sponsor of the bill whether or not naming TikTok specifically in the bill would include any successor entities. And she contacted the Attorney General's office, and the AG advised that successor entities be included in the bill if a rebranding effort or something came out with TikTok Plus.
Is Delegate Munoz in the call?
She's not, but she's good with the amendment.
And I also see that former Delegate Novotny is also here. who's
Move the
giving a
amendment.
thumbs up. Second.
The amendment and has been moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Anyone opposed to the amendment? Delegate Hill is
have a
opposed to the
question.
amendment?
No, I have
Okay.
a question on the amendment.
I'm waiting too.
Amendment.
Yeah.
We're both waiting. We're taking a vote. We've had questions.
Gotcha. Then let me slow down. Delegate Kaiser.
My question was twofold. When I looked at the bill language, and I think the language is still there, despite the amendment, that it references on page 2, line 4, or lines 3 and 4, any information technology owned by the unit. So I wasn't sure what that language meant. So that's more to Lindsay. And then my question, I guess the bill sponsor isn't here, but why are we highlighting only a few social media apps and not all of them on state-owned things, on state-owned computers?
Let me just hear from Delegate Hill, and then we're going to have to hold this bill.
So a really quick question. It says on any device that's hooked up to our government-owned access points or whatever, but we have a guest MGA. So I'm not clear on what this bill does for people who are here and hooked up to guest MGA. And I see former Delegate Novotny's here. Maybe he can answer Delegate Kaiser's question.
Delegate Novotny, we're really under the clock here, but if you can make a point very quickly, we'd love to hear it.
The point very quickly would be that this is the same language as Virginia just passed. And the reason why they've only pointed out these two companies is that their highest degree of potential spying on US citizens. And that's why they were highlighted, not other social media companies.
Thank you, Delegate.
And my
listen,
question,
everyone, we'll just have to get back to that with Lindsay, because I've got to call this meeting closed because we have to be in committee in 1 minute. So we're going to hold this bill, and we're going to hold Bill 646 until our next meeting. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.